Good day, I'm Administrator Adam Southgate, and today's lecture will be covering the Entropic sphere's Anifeiliaid, or the Welsh lycanthrope. Imagine for me, if you will, something that is growing within you, a distinctly different being that has begun to form mixed in with you, attempting to occupy the same space as you as it forces its way through bone, muscle, and skin. As time passes and the two of you become more intertwined, it becomes difficult to distinguish between you, as this fusing is not only skin deep, as organs and minds begin to combine. At what point do your thoughts stop being yours and becomes ours? This is what today's entity confronts us with. But before I get ahead of myself, I'd like to mention the Order's Discord to help keep our hunters organized. It's broken up into different roles based on rank and which Earth you belong to, if any. Along with this, we conduct our contracts through this system, so I hope to see you all there. Now, onto our Hunters update. Firstly, we've been graciously offered by Outside Adventures, a physical training company started by an ex-SAS officer, to take part in their own specially designed 2-week training program. The course comes in 2 stages, the first week being wholly dedicated to physical conditioning and stamina enhancement. You'll be introduced to a wide range of exercises and routines designed to heighten your own physical ability, if continued after the course's completion, of course. And if you sign up within the next 2 months, you can gain a 10% discount on all Outside Adventures training equipment. The final week will be a crash course on team tactics and weapon disciplines, introducing you to the outstanding combat acumen that has made the SAS one of the world's premier fighting forces. As an intensive training program, you'll be living on site for the full 2 weeks, sleeping in tents and roughing it in the great outdoors. You'll be expected to navigate on foot via maps from training site to training site, while also carrying your own food and water on your backs. This is not a course for the faint of heart, but neither is the occupation of a hunter, so you shouldn't have any issue taking on this challenge. The experience has also been put forward by the Master Hunters Association as an excellent one to sign your apprentices up for, as it will lay a fantastic foundation for their future careers. The whole experience only costs £2,000 per person per week, with food, weapons and ammunition needing to be supplied by the participants themselves, and is wonderful as a groundwork to a hunter's career or as a tune-up for those who have become rusty after injury-related leave. So, what are you waiting for? Sign up for Outside Adventures training program and take your skills to the next level.
Warning, Outside Adventures takes no legal responsibility for any injury or death experienced during the training program. All participants must sign a legal waiver before undertaking the Outside Adventures training program and must inform next of kin that they are doing so with the full understanding of this responsibility. Outside Adventures makes no legally binding promises of any increase in skill or ability resulting from said training, only that said training will take place. Thank you.
Secondly, with the situation with the Iron Dawn resolved, we can now fully refocus onto the developing catastrophe that is Alan Thorne and his cabal of necromancers. The issue that we now face is that while we know they are searching for a Path of Life artifact that allows the user to control others' minds, we do not know the name of said artifact, or even what it looks like. This is rather a large issue, as our best option at current is to find and secure the artifact before the necromancers do, and they know what they are looking for. If we had the strength, we would simply assault them directly. However, after so many large-scale threats, we are simply stretched too thin, even with the international hunters being loaned to us from other organizations. We do have a saving grace, however. We have learnt of a Path of Life necromancer acting alone within Pembroke. Now, we do not know if this individual ran from Alan Thorne's group or simply avoided being swept up into it in the first place, but they are our best lead on this artifact without tipping off Alan himself that we are looking for it. Sadly, we only know of this person's existence due to the fact that they have been active within the area, with people going missing on a semi-regular basis, so we cannot expect them to be receptive to their own capture. This will, for the most part, be a typical path of life necromancer contract, establishing MO and their likely hunting locations, and pulling them into a trap. However, instead of simply taking the target down, you will need to bring them in alive and able to communicate. We would like between 2 to 4 hunters for this contract of at least late journeyman rank or higher. This contract can be accepted via the Order's Discord, where it will have its own tab under contracts. Before we can talk about the Welsh lycanthrope and the Anifeiliaid that causes them, we must first cover a little background. The Entropic sphere is truly unique, as only one kind of entity actually comes from said sphere, that of the benign spirit. These are mindless collections of essentially electrical-like energy that, within their own sphere, exist within an unfathomably large soup of beings that are so intertwined that it is impossible to distinguish one from the other. When a breach from this sphere occurs into our own, it is not a singular entity that comes through, but rather a mass flood, to the point where today we are surrounded by these benign spirits, them being as dense as the air upon our world. This is of no issue on its own, as stated, they are simply mindless energy and are imperceivable without highly specialized equipment. The true problem comes about when they are exposed to both death and extreme sensation. Within their home sphere, change is a concept that is as incomprehensible as the third dimension would be to a two-dimensional being. Death being the height of change, moving from living, animate, thinking being to what is essentially an organic object, it can have a profound effect on the benign spirits. While typically they can maintain their authentic nature within our sphere when exposed to the shutting off of the electrical signals within a brain and witnessing the flood of volatile emotions caused by a grisly end, an odd reaction takes place. These typical passive beings take on a warped reflection of the one they witness passing, becoming a far more dangerous being, not constricted by their own universe's laws. To do this correctly, I feel it would be best to first follow a benign spirit through its transformation into an Anifeiliaid up to the fusing with a human host, after which we will transition to the human perspective as their body is torn asunder. An animal. It could literally be any animal including another human, but for this example we will choose a European badger. Has become tangled within a discarded length of barbed wire that is wrapped around the poor creature's neck. It is not enough to immediately kill the creature, but is cutting into the skin, creating open wounds that with time become infected and are unable to heal. This, after a time, is enough to kill the animal that dies, starving and in pain. A benign spirit, reacting to the suffering and death of the animal, takes on a form of an Anifeiliaid. Now, there are literally hundreds of entropic entities that could have resulted from this, but we are covering the Anifeiliaid, so let's move on. The new entity is a reflection of the animal at the point of its death, being in a constant state of pain, terror, and fear-fueled rage. Now, in most cases, this is where the story ends, the Anifeiliaid haunting, for lack of a better term, a random patch of land, but never really coming into contact with human beings. However, some, around 30 to 40% of Anifeiliaid, will begin to roam, not specifically looking for people, but rather simply moving along the currents created by benign spirits. This will eventually bring them into contact with humanity. We are unsure how or why these entities pick the people they do, their minds being based off the animals they are mimicking, but when they are close enough to a person they deem suitable, they will drift into their body, merging with them. From the human's perspective, at least most of the time, they will not have noticed anything out of the ordinary, as the Anifeiliaid are not visible except for during a period of 34 seconds during twilight, an effect that cannot be replicated through any man-made means. For the first few days, all will appear normal with no noticeable anomalous effects. However, after this time has passed, the first stage of transformation into a Welsh lycanthrope will begin. At different points throughout the body, typically focused on the limbs, a dull throbbing pain will slowly flare up, similar to that of growing pains in adolescence. Over the next few weeks, these will grow in intensity until reaching the point of a chronic condition, typically resulting in the victim seeking out medical help via pain relief, either legally or otherwise. This pain is caused by, throughout the skeletal structure, new bones developing within the existing skeleton. This is not a perfect fusion, these new bones being treated as a foreign body, the immune system attempting in vain to attack these structures, causing inflammation around the area and exacerbating the pain. At the same time, powerful cravings will begin for unconventional foods such as soil or even coal. This is due to the body lacking vital minerals that are being used up in the creation of these new structures. As these new limbs grow beneath the skin, they will begin to split through the original bone and cut through the muscle covering them, only increasing the pain. After months of this, the victim will typically possess large protruding lumps across their bodies as the new fully formed growths sit beneath the skin. Their size and the fact that the local immune system is still attacking the area will cause the epidermis above to slowly weaken and die, eventually splitting and releasing the foreign limbs beneath. These new appendages will be that of the original animal the Anifeiliaid was mimicking. This is not a perfect fusion of man and beast like with the Nordic werewolf. Instead, the individual pieces of the animal are spread throughout the human body in a similar, though more extreme form of conjoined twins. The skin around the exit point will never fully recover, the body still attempting to reject the animal limbs, causing it to always be highly sore and weeping. The faces with a more troubling physical trauma can be observed, especially in relation to the jaw, as the two biological hinge mechanisms are often off-center of each other, causing extreme pain with even the slightest of movement. This imperfect fusion of flesh is far more than skin deep, as the organs of the victim will also become fused in often detrimental ways to that of the animal, causing further issues, especially in the case of the brain, which we will cover more in the next section. Interestingly, the musculature of the victim will be enhanced by this merging, though it will not typically be uniform, with only, as an example, one arm gaining the benefit, while the other limbs are forced to work against the misplaced muscle that pulls in the wrong direction. This can make the Welsh lycanthrope a fierce combatant, as muscles meant for a much smaller creature, in this case a badger, are upscaled and overlaid upon and through the already existing tissue, giving them explosive strength and speed. The transformation brought on by the Anifeiliaid has a truly devastating effect on the mind of the now Welsh lycanthrope. The issue is caused by the reaction of the animal's brain being literally formed connected to the host or partially inside it. This exposes the human mind to the heightened emotions of the animal they have been fused with, as both minds are still distinct but connected. This creates an awful effect. As humans, our rational minds will often create justifications for emotions we are feeling. Emotion followed by thought. This has been the cause of far too many arguments between people throughout history, as people become upset or angry at someone without fully knowing why, then creating a justification for those feelings. It's human nature and experienced by all, but is infinitely exacerbated in one exposed to the raw panic and anger of an animal in constant pain. The issue for the victim is that the feelings from the animal, though not their own, feel like their own, and so the Welsh lycanthrope, flooded with fight or flight, react accordingly. This causes them to lash out at any who approach them, and with their enhanced strength, this can be highly dangerous. In most cases, they will attempt to depart from human society, escaping to rural areas where, again, pushed by their animal instinct, they will set up a territory. The problem is that they are constantly flooded with the emotions of a dying, desperate animal. Everything is a threat, everything wants to kill them, and at the same time, they are in constant burning pain by this point. All of this combines to drive them to madness. Thankfully, the wildlife of Britain isn't particularly wild, being primarily herbivores or small to medium-sized carnivores. This typically means that the Welsh lycanthrope will not actively hunt anything either the same size as itself or bigger. Welsh lycanthropes can come in either carnivore or herbivore variants based on the animal they have been fused with. The herbivorous variants will not actively hunt, however will still attack and kill those who get too close, while the carnivorous variants are somewhat more proactive. They will actively hunt human children as they fall within the size requirement, along with young deer, rabbits, and birds, and will engage with adult humans who either back them into a corner or spend too long within their territory. It also must be remembered that, while emotionally volatile to the extreme, they still possess human intelligence and will construct traps to ward off unwanted interlopers within their territory. But how does one hunt a Welsh lycanthrope? Well, firstly, and rather sadly, there is very little that can be done about the entropic entity that causes the issue in the first place before the issue has been caused. As stated, the Anifeiliaid is undetectable except during twilight and is only visible for a short period of time. Also, the burial rites of badgers and rabbits is unknown to us, so that is a dead end. As for the Welsh lycanthropes themselves, it very much depends on the stage of their transformation. During the earliest detectable stage, when the victim is only suffering aches and pains, it is a simple matter of an arrest. This is true for much of the early stages until the animal mind has fully developed and partially fused with the human one. Once in our custody, we will wait until we know for certain what the affliction we are dealing with is, doing all we can to make the person comfortable during this time. Once the condition has been confirmed, we will then put down this individual as humanely as possible, as there is no way to keep a fully transformed Welsh lycanthrope in custody. The issue is that their fight or flight instinct is so strong that we would need to provide them with more land than is feasible to make them comfortable. Without this large amount of room in a natural environment, they become so stressed that their bodies can give out. Once they have passed, we perform the victim's chosen death ritual, which surprisingly returns the Anifeiliaid back to their benign state, which only raises further questions about the entropic entities. For fully transformed individuals, the job is far more complicated. You will have a rough idea of their location based on found animal carcasses and people who may have been attacked, but you will need to establish the boundaries of their territory. This can thankfully be achieved via the use of trained dogs who can sniff for the scent markers left by the Welsh lycanthrope. You'll then want to walk around this location specifically looking for terrain that would offer the creature a covered escape, as typically they will not run across exposed ground. Once located, you'll want to post a hunter in wait at each location armed with a weapon with heavy stopping power. This done, you and more hunters will then need to enter the territory. This will either trigger an engagement where you and your team can simply take down the creature, or it will attempt to flee via the natural formations you covered with hunters earlier, who can then take it down before it can escape. Once dispatched, the typical burial rites for the original person must be performed to return the Anifeiliaid to a benign state. The Anifeiliaid and the Welsh lycanthrope created from it only raises more questions about the entropic sphere. While entropic entities that possess people and even objects are rather common, the fact that the Anifeiliaid, which most of the time is mimicking an animal, then possesses a human is rather odd. We do not know what drives them to attempt this merging with man, as their minds are literally a copy of the animal they are mimicking, and much of the time these animals are ones that normally avoid man at all costs. It is a conundrum that we will someday need to understand, but that will be all for today. Please like, comment and subscribe. With Arthur's might and Merlin's wisdom, thank you.